Thank you.
Secure commercial real estate investments, finally made possible in an accessible and affordable way, granting you complete freedom to manage your portfolio. A disruptive and innovative blockchain-backed platform that keeps your money completely secure while efficiently unlocking new possibilities. Sign up today at accrue.co.
Free your tied-up capital. Eliminate costly middlemen. Access to liquidity with reduced risk. Capitalize the true value of your assets. Portfolio and investor management made simple. Real-time risk profiling and robust security. Commercial real estate investment revolutionized using secure blockchain technology. Tokenize with us today, making the exclusive inclusive.
Complicated? Accrue lets you focus on what is really important: life. Invest in premium commercial real estate for as low as $1,000 without hassle and worry. Accrue, making the exclusive inclusive.
Free your tied-up capital. Eliminate costly middlemen. Access to liquidity with reduced risk. Capitalize the true value of your assets. Portfolio and investor management made simple. Real-time risk profiling and robust security. Commercial real estate investment revolutionized using secure blockchain technology. Tokenize with us today, making the exclusive inclusive.
Jessica, you're muted again, really quick.
Hey, we're back. It's the beauty of a live digital conference. So great points there from our speakers. So a huge thank you. Now we've heard from Chris Land and we've also heard from SEC Commissioner Peirce on the regulatory side of things through the third annual Securities Summit. It wouldn't be the same if we didn't have a fully fledged conversation around the topic with our next group of guests. So I'm really excited to welcome you, US Representative Congressman Emmer, Jeff Bandman of Bandman Advisors, Rosenberg of Simetria, Nasiri of Emergents, and moderator Rachel Wolfson from Cointelegraph. Guys, enjoy the conversation.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Jessica. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Wolfson. I'm a reporter with Cointelegraph. And thanks again for all of you at the Security Token Summit for organizing this panel today. I've got a great group of panelists. I'm just going to go ahead and let them just introduce themselves for, maybe 30 seconds or so, and then we're going to jump into our questions. So, Sean, would you like to start?
Sure. Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Sean Nassiri. I'm a director at Emergents, which is the digital asset, blockchain, and emerging technology arm of parent investment bank Wield & Co. Prior to Emergents, I was running business development and operations at TokenSoft, which is the leading security token issuance and management platform. And essentially, between being at the bank and at TokenSoft, we ensure compliance as part of our service, which I guess explains why I'm on a securities and regulations panel as a non-legal professional.
Great. Ella?
Hi, I'm Ella Rosenberg. I'm from Simetria. I'm an EU regulatory consultant based in Tel Aviv, and good evening to everyone from Tel Aviv.
Thanks. Jeff?
Hi, everybody. Jeff Bandman. I'm a lawyer turned business executive turned regulator turned kind of entrepreneur, consultant, and policy person with the Global Digital Finance International Policy Initiative, also the Bandman Advisors, kind of regulatory consultants focused on US and Europe, and really excited for today's discussion.
Great. And Congressman Emmer? Would you like to introduce yourself, Congressman Emmer, really briefly? Oh, I think we lost him. Did we lose Congressman Emmer? Can you guys see him anymore?
He just went off screen.
Okay.
I think we lost him for a sec.
Okay.
He's having some audio issues, I believe.
Okay. I'm sure he will rejoin us shortly. So I'll just go ahead and get the discussion started while we wait for Congressman Emmer to come back. Ella, I'd like to start with you. So regulations for AML are extremely important right now. Can you explain? Yes. Can you explain why and also discuss the impact of 6MLD, please?
Yes. So quite interestingly enough, when specifically, I'm going to discuss 6MLD within the European framework. But funny enough, it also impacts other markets, as I will explain furthermore. But essentially, 6MLD is the new anti-money laundering directive in the European Union that sets out the anti-money laundering practices that should take place within the European Union. Now, funny enough, people always ask me, what is the difference between a directive and a regulation? So a directive is the lower end of the regulatory framework within the European Union, which enables member states to enact national laws within a guideline set by the European Commission. At the same time, a regulation takes that a bit further and gives one set of rules within the European Union for a specific, specific type of law. Now, if we look at the anti-money laundering directive, the new one, 6MLD, it's quite straightforward, but at the same time, it's very innovative in the sense that for the first time in European Union law history, criminal liability is enacted on the European Union level, not on the member state level. In addition to that, there's also the issue of blacklisting of companies that are not compliant with 6MLD. And there's the issue of FIUs, so financial intelligence units, that can and should correspond between one another in a case of suspicion of money laundering. How is this related specifically for STOs and cryptocurrencies? It all comes down to the fact of KYC. How do you onboard KYC? How do you onboard clients? What kind of KYC do you ask? How do you store that KYC? In addition to that, it also comes to the fact of how do you report to the regulator? What documents do you report? What documents do you not report? At the same time, you also need to bear in mind that suspicious activity are not only recommended to be reported, should be reported. So this is the innovative part of 6MLD within the European Union.
Got it. That's extremely interesting. Thank you so much, Ella. And obviously, since this panel discussion is about regulations and compliance, Jeff, I think this is a really important question that you can answer. So based on your background and experience, do you know what we can expect from the SEC under the new US administration?
Yeah, I think that with regard to digital assets, I think that the SEC, we can expect it to be a real hotspot for the next couple of years. Obviously, the chairman nominee, Gary Gensler, former chairman of the CFTC, where I used to work, is someone, he's had the experience leading a regulatory agency before. He's shown he can really lead to a lot of changes in terms of market structure. The CFTC enacted a large number of rules at the time to create the new market structure with respect to swaps. Now, with respect to digital assets, there's quite a number of issues that have been kind of piling up over the last couple of years. And the SEC has certainly been working very hard to deal with them and to engage with them. But there are, quite a number of things that have either been left open or yet to be determined. So one of those is, will there be a retail product that's made available to U.S. investors? And, elsewhere in the U.S., investors can obviously invest in spot crypto assets. They can invest in futures that are offered on the CFTC regulated exchanges in Canada. There are now exchange traded products and ETFs, but the SEC has yet to approve a retail ETF. So will that be approved under Chairman Gensler once he's there? Well, I think he will. He's shown that he is very familiar with the data. He's taught courses on this. So I think we can expect him to pay a lot of attention to the data. I think there will be a lot of focus on market structure. Clearly, the full agency will need to be engaged in that. And then I think the other thing we can expect, it's not going to be a case of, gee, he sort of understands crypto, so they're going to take away the goalie. we can expect robust enforcement. We can expect very, very strong investor protection and scrutiny. Certainly as a new market structure was being put in place under the CFC regime, a lot of the incumbents were very uncomfortable. There were things they objected to, but they were done with a view towards, promoting transparency, investor protection, and other values. So I think the SEC will be a real hotspot over the next couple of years once Chairman Gensler is in place, assuming he is confirmed by the full Senate.
Right. Very interesting. Congressman Emmer, welcome back. Glad to see you. Glad to see you made it back in. Actually, the next question I want to ask is for you. You recently introduced the Securities Clarity Act. Can you please explain what this means and its impact both nationally and globally?
Yeah, I'm happy to. The Securities Clarity Act would be a technology neutral bill that would clarify that an investment contract asset, for instance, like a digital token, would be separate and distinct from the securities offering it might have been a part of. As you know, an investment contract asset is any asset sold as an object of an investment contract. The reason this is important is there's just an unreasonable level of uncertainty with the way that federal securities laws should be applied to transactions involving the sale of blockchain-based tokens. And it's this lack of clarity that, frankly, is hurting American innovation. And I believe is potentially, I believe it's already doing it, but certainly going forward, it has a serious implication of driving entrepreneurs out of the U.S. So as a legislator, I don't want to directly, obviously, weigh in. We know that there's pending litigation, right, on this issue. I don't want to weigh into that. I have prior to the litigation, but it really comes down to whether something is a security or not. We have to. We've got to get some clarity, which is there's the title of the bill, the Securities Clarity Act.
Right. Well, I think
Congressman, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting right now, Congressman Emmer. Can you explain how that may relate to the SEC versus Ripple case?
Well, that's what I was trying to stay away from.
Oh, okay.
But that's all right. I mean, obviously, I previously said that I don't think XRP is a security. XRP was created in 2012. And, even though it was originally with Ripple and it's spun off and they're separate, right? Ripple was talking to the SEC and gave all the information. This has been 8 to 9 years. This is the problem. And I think, now, again, without weighing into that pending case, the fact that we're litigating an 8-year-old development should tell everyone that the SEC needs to do a better job of providing in advance clear rules of the road. And I think you might want to look at another bill that David Schweikert, my friend from Arizona, has. It's called the Digital Commodities Exchange Act, and it's complementary to the Securities Clarity Act, in that bill creates a framework at the CFTC to regulate trading venues, which then list emerging digital commodities like Bitcoin for public trading. So if a virtual currency is deemed not to be a security under the Securities Clarity Act, then it would be regulated by the CFTC. I think these are things that we have to start thinking of as legislators so that government doesn't get in the way of this innovation, so government regulators don't regulate through enforcement, and the entrepreneurs can literally start to weigh into these areas without fear of punishment, without fear of subsequent action. And I think it'll be better for the entire environment, quite frankly. We just need more clarity, period.
Panelists, did you want to add anything to that? I mean, Congressman Emmer made such a good point. Jeff, Sean, or Ella, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I had one question for Mr. Emmer. So essentially the Clarities Act, is this supposed to kind of create a little bit more separation between digital tokens and the Howey test specifically?
So yes, my answer to that would be yes. I think the Howey test is it's great for lawyers, Sean.
It is case law at the end of the day, not law.
Right, and I mean it's great. It's full employment for lawyers. But I think it's kind of, this all came from when I first got involved in this space 5 years ago. I think government really needs to do a better job, even though there's overlap, of defining what is a currency, what is a commodity, and what is a security. We're just focusing on this Securities Clarity Act today because it's just had some serious implications, I think, in terms of driving entrepreneurs out. I think we want to attract them. We've got the best and the brightest. We want them developing things here. So, yes, the answer is I think the Howey test, great. That's where the courts went. But I think as legislators, we can do better.
Yeah, I'd like to comment as well. I mean, I think that providing this regulatory clarity from Congress and both of the bills you referred to, would help innovators. And I have kind of a couple of perspectives on that. I spent quite a fair amount of time in 2019 and 2020 working on launching a transfer agent registered with the SEC, focused on launching blockchain-based digital securities. And in order to do that, you need issuers who are launching tokenized securities or security tokens, and quite a number of them. And they were engaging with the SEC, but there were issues, whether around the token, whether around the trading dynamics, how post-trade clearing and settlement would work. And eventually, quite a number of those issuers just gave up. A number of them have seen it through. But for incumbents, it's a different scenario. But for entrepreneurs and innovators, time is one of the most important factors. And getting that clarity, even if part of the answer is no, you can't do everything you want to do. So I think that can make a real difference for innovators to have that kind of clarity. And the other comment on the other bill that the Congressman mentioned, right now there is no federal regulator directly supervising the spot market, right, for crypto assets like Bitcoin or Ether or others that are determined not to be securities. And I think that's a reason why we don't have an SEC regulated exchange traded product. In many other countries, we have somebody who's supervising that market. And the ability for investors in America to invest kind of safely and securely, knowing somebody is supervising these markets, would provide a lot of clarity and safety. But it really is up to Congress to do it. And if you can make that happen, I think there would be a lot of grateful innovators and investors.
Wonderful. Yes, let's see that happen. So next question is for Sean. Sean, obviously NFTs are booming right now, and I know that you know a lot about that. Can you talk about regulations around NFTs?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Rachel. I think, NFTs are obviously the hot topic right now, and I think we're barely still scratching the surface on what NFTs can truly do. Right now, it's, very much in pop culture as art and collectibles. And I think as far as regulations pertain to creators, there isn't as many, right? It's still just art. But I think, where NFTs do get interesting is around ownership and IP rights. A lot of which just having a fungible token with provenance and being on the blockchain will help mitigate a lot of things, especially as it pertains to sort of counterfeit art and collectibles. But I think where the real regulation comes in is on the platform and exchange side. And those, as with all things related to crypto, still need to adhere to KYC AML, OFAC regulations. So, and just as with the regular art world, people just want to make sure there's no nefarious activities happening, that, this art and transfer of money isn't going to, bad actors and organizations and isn't used for money laundering practices. So I think, those things still very much exist. And, what's interesting is, the Financial Actions Task Force put out some thoughts on this just last week, specifically on the monitoring and classifications of NFTs and DeFi more broadly. So I think we're going to start seeing some more clarity around these things as well. But I mean, for now, I think just like with securities and security tokens, just because it's wrapped in a blockchain digital wrapper doesn't necessarily mean the laws change. You still need to sort of follow them as they are written. And the fortunate thing with art is it's still fairly broad. So I think we're going to see some good things coming from it. And I think this will do a lot for the IP and sort of copyright ownership world as the NFTs mature.
Great. Did any of the panelists have anything to add to that? on NFTs and regulations? Okay. Ella, oh, go ahead, Congressman Emmer. Did you want to add to something?
Well, I think Sean touched on it, but I might have missed it. I just think it's kind of cool with these NFTs that they can contain smart contracts that give the artist or the creator a cut of future sales of the token. I think that's and I think that's what you were getting at, Sean, as it evolves and as it moves forward. Lots of different things you can do with it.
Yeah, I mean, so these NFTs are essentially embedded within for the most part, an Ethereum-based ERC derivative, but they could be written into plenty of other protocols. But it sort of takes a lot of the guesswork around kind of making sure people are compensated as co-creators, collaborators, and create sort of a long tail appreciation in royalties, which doesn't exist in the traditional trading markets as pertains to collectibles.
Yeah, I think it does. If I may add one other thing, and you know, I mean, I think this is just a really a wonderful example of the way innovation challenges traditional boundaries and definitions. Like at first, at least as NFTs started to get a lot more prominence over the last month and the last couple of months with some of these eye-popping numbers and sales and tweets and auctions. At first it sounded like, well, these are just collectibles, and collectibles, don't necessarily sound like securities, and are they, commodities? Well, they're really individual and bespoke, so more like collectibles. But really, and Congressman Emmer commented about how you can have the smart contract embedded in it, and as Sean, as you said, these potential, kind of payment streams and royalties. Well, wait a second. Well, then maybe does it start to sound like a securitization? And if you have the artwork, but then you're using kind of fragmentation or micro things, and then lots of people can participate in that, then you take something which at first sounded simple, like, oh, it's a unique collectible, but then it actually it could be a complex financial instrument that has a lot of attributes of other complex financial instruments. So maybe it is going to be an investment contract, after all. Hopefully clarified by the Clarity Act, but it just is opening a whole Pandora's box of innovation.
And I think that's an excellent point. These NFTs can quickly transform from digital collectibles into securities. So if you start doing things like fractional ownership, if you start pooling collections of art together and let people invest into it, or like what Justin Blau, the DJ, did, was he actually sold the future royalties off of his album. And for that, he actually did register with a broker-dealer and as a security. So, yeah, I think, that's also where those definitions come in that can take something from being art, just like there is art funds, just like there is tokenized or art sort of crowdfunding websites that have taken art and turned it into a security as well. So, yeah, I think there's no blanket statement for it. Yeah, I think we'll see securities come out of it for sure.
Interestingly enough, if you do look specifically on the art industry as an industry and how NFTs have penetrated this specific topic, there's one thing that no one else is discussing is how, interesting enough, it just entered the art market and also into other markets as well. I've been dealing with a group of experts a few years ago, and we were actually discussing the issue of defense, how NFTs can also at a certain point access the defense market and other markets as well. It's very, to a certain extent, it's quite focused on artifacts currently. But if you look at the defense industry as well, those artifacts can also mirror in that sector as well. And then you take NFTs and you essentially push them up a notch, not only to one market, but to multiple markets as well.
Right. NFTs they're just so interesting right now. So I'm curious to see what happens around the regulations there. We really need some clarity. Next question, I think, Jeff, maybe you can start off by answering this one. Do you think we need a safe harbor proposal in place as introduced by Commissioner Peirce? What are your thoughts on that? Anyone can answer, but Jeff, I know you have some expertise here.
Yeah, I'll get us started. It's some interesting dialogue with her, and really enjoyed her comments about that. Earlier in the conference. It's interesting. I mean, the SEC actually, one of the last things they did under the prior chairman was to issue a safe harbor for broker-dealer custody for specialized broker-dealers for digital assets. So, I think that may get fine-tuned a bit, but I think there's a lot of demand for any kind of safe harbor. With respect to Commissioner Peirce's safe harbor, she's indicated that she's gotten a lot of feedback on it, and it sounds like she's going to be reproposing it soon. I think the gist of it, at least one of the cores, is that, a team will get a little bit of time. They can propose something, innovate, and as long as it stays small, they'll get a certain amount of time to get it to a state of decentralization. I think that's, philosophically in line with some of the ideas that Congressman Emmer was referring to. I think it's going to be hard for the SEC to really, figure out how to navigate that, because, it does, the flip side is, does it open the door to other people finding ways to say, okay, I'm going to take this thing, which is really a security, and sell it to investors, and then I get sort of time to transform it. So I think there's a real demand for it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how she iterates the proposal, because to bring clarity to all these projects so that American innovators can continue to do this without feeling like they have to go offshore or they have to sort of modify it. I think there's going to be a lot of demand, and hopefully the new commission under the new chairman will be ready to engage on some of these ideas.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of safe harbors and sandboxes. I think it shows like a real proactive sort of approach by government to actually get in touch with the innovators. And I spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia in 2019, especially towards the end of the year. And it seemed like the regulators, specifically within Singapore, which everybody was really relishing in, were being very proactive about working with all the sort of people within the ecosystem to develop laws. And if you look at, most of the laws in America, specifically as it pertains to securities, they're very reactive. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. They make laws after people lose their shirts and things go bad. Whereas with tech, and I know with the EU actually as well, they've also been very proactive in sort of creating regulations and safe harbors for the crypto and blockchain community, because they want to be part of this technical way, this tech wave. So I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's a major step in the right direction, and it's great for the industry as a whole.
I'd echo that very quickly. If you look at the stuff that I've been offering, it involves safe harbors. And it's not just about the SEC, and I won't disparage the SEC or any other bureaucracy or enforcement regulatory agency that's trying to catch up, but they got to catch up. They got to get moving. And Sean, you're right. People are moving to create laws, but the problem we have is I think in our country, I think our regulatory bureaucracy is doing just the opposite. I think they're playing third base with both hands placed firmly around their throat. They don't want to let it hang out because, like Jeff was saying, there's a hunger for this stuff. And where's that line? You're gonna let people innovate and create, and then all of a sudden, what is big? Jeff made the comment that as long as it's small and it starts out, the problem is we got to get our elected officials up to speed and understanding what this is. This isn't Silk Road. This is something much bigger than that. It's got I love the complexity that we were talking about earlier when Ella went into. She's going to make me really expand my thinking about how these things grow and get more complex. But you already know there's smart people out there looking at how they may take this to the next level. And I think it's really important that we create those safe harbors so that people can innovate and create and succeed, by the way. There's nothing wrong with success. And if we think that they lived on the edge as we go forward, that we have to honor our commitment to balance risk and protect investors, great. Let's do it looking forward without punishing people looking in the rearview mirror so that they can create.
Interestingly enough, I'm going to say something which is a very unpopular opinion, but I'm going to mention it anyhow. Interestingly enough, the most basic compliance officer in the crypto exchange today, based in Estonia, knows much more about regulations and anti-money laundering practices than the majority of many anti-money laundering officers within certain institutions within the European Union. So the beautiful thing about sandboxes and safe harbors is it entails some sort of correspondence between the regulator on the one hand and the private sector on the other hand. I've witnessed in several instances in which the most basic crypto exchange knows more about how to maintain a basic anti-money laundering framework within an enterprise rather than the regulator. Now, this is, as I said, it has no any sort of repercussion on the regulator because the regulator has to set the policy on how to do certain things, and then the compliance team has to execute that specific policy. But there's absolutely no difference in that sense of the line of work. But at the same time, opening this correspondence between the two is very efficient. I always tell people that I work with that it's very important to keep a relationship between an STO or cryptocurrency with the regulator as you keep a relationship with your mother-in-law, meaning that it has to be a very correct relationship, but at the same time, it has to be a very friendly relationship. And this is something that the European Union, in that sense, is doing miraculously well. You see how it's going very well within the FTA. You see how it's going very well in Lithuania. Lithuania, funny and interestingly enough, is doing amazingly well within their sandbox. So yes, I full-heartedly support that opinion.
Great, thank you. And on that note, Ella, we're out of time, so we're going to end the panel. Thank you so much to our panelists and to the audience and the organizers of the Security Token Summit. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.